Anne Byler, founder of Auntie Anne's, grew up with what she would call horse and buggy Amish parents. Her childhood was spent on a 100-acre farm in Lancaster, PA with 7 siblings. At 17, she joined the Mennonite Church, and at 19, she married her husband Jonas. While she hadn't gone to college, her upbringing taught her teamwork, discipline, and perseverance. Because she and her husband weren't emotionally connecting, she went to a pastor outside of the community for counseling. That ended up being a 6-year-long sexually abusive relationship. During their marital troubles, Jonas was studying to become a marriage and family counselor. After the pastor's license was revoked due to his behavior with multiple women, Anne and her husband basically restarted their whole life together. Anne encouraged Jonas to pursue his passion of providing free counseling to the community while she found a way to bring in some dough. In 1988, Anne bought an Amish-owned pretzel, ice cream, and pizza store for $6,000. On February 2nd, she opened. For the first few weeks, she sold pretzels and pizzas using the old owner's recipes. Once she made her own pretzel recipe, the customer feedback was so great that she stuck with pretzels and eventually named the place Auntie Anne's, since she had 30 nieces and nephews, and that's what everyone called her anyway. A few months later, in July, Anne opened a second store in Harrisburg, and in 1989, 10 stores were built under a licensing agreement for friends and family. Today, Auntie Anne's has over 600 locations internationally, is owned by Focus Brands, and has an initial franchising fee of $30,000.
Hello everyone, this is Joe. So Auntie Anne's reminds me of family, nostalgia, childhood, and malls. So I felt like I should do a rebrand from that perspective of bring my childhood back, bring that kind of 90s and 80s back into the modern day. So in sketching, I toyed around with a few styles that are trending now, in particular with the dot patterns, which is an element that I married and divorced later. Always be aware if you are married to an idea and why. While the negative A that you saw in the sketching phase felt okay, along with a figure holding the pretzels, I ultimately settled on a pretzel shape that kind of intimated the A for Auntie Anne's and emphasized the heart shape of the pretzel to indicate family. Those kinds of values like nostalgia, love, care, those things that should be important to a brand these days. So once I start moving into Illustrator, I really set out to replicate what I've done in my sketchbook first before doing anything else. And when I have it about where I need it to be, is where I really start to explore and play around. So I'll do different shapes, different angles, different colors, basically doing a lot of macro kind of edits to the overall design to get to where I feel like it needs to be. And once I get to a point where it feels right, is where I really zoom in from the macro to the micro to flush out the details, like line work, really like getting on point with the colors in particular. And for this logo, it took a real long while for me to settle in. There's still some late game experimentation, as I'm sure you've noticed, with different lines, weights, styles, and pretzel shapes in particular. And that's when Hannah stepped in and said swap the black for white, and that's when it all clicked. Once I had that and some other extra outside advice, where everything really came together in terms of the overall design. And so we ended up with this kind of cute, clean, retro, modern take on the classic Auntie Anne pretzel logo. So, the two major points for anyone that's been following along with this video is 1. Don't get married to an idea. If you do, be ready to divorce it. And 2. Outside perspectives can break your mental blocks by providing a new set of eyes that can give you new, great ideas.
Alright guys, this is Hannah. I'm going to be going through a bit of my Illustrator process with you today. You'll see I start out with a pretty basic pretzel silhouette and clean type in the font Alio. I'm just tweaking the type by rounding out the corners to give the typeface a friendlier feel. In general, I'm looking to update Auntie Anne's to today rather than completely change their look altogether. That's why I started by playing around with outline text, rich blue, golden yellow, and a serif font. As I work, I'm finessing points and scale until I find a happy spot before adding the negative space to the pretzel to air out the first logo rendition. Now, because Anne's religious roots carved the way for how she started and grew her business, I wanted to honor that with a logo version that includes a halo, like the one designed by RBMM and introduced in 2006. Rather than their color-blocked halo, I went with line work with cut-throughs, so that way it could just be used in one color. I then tried experimenting with a more organic pretzel shape by tracing over one of my sketches with the pen tool and reflecting it for perfect symmetry. After merging it together and fixing the center points, I matched it with a simple line to represent a halo. I broke this out into a few different versions while trying to find balance in the weight of the overall symbol. From there, I did some stacked variations using an A from the Alio typeset logo. Then I went through a few rounds of stacked logos with an edited version of Adobe Caslon. At this point, I was feeling a stronger directional pull with the layout and updated colors, but I still wasn't achieving the desired Auntie Anne's vibe. I took a break to chat with Joe, and upon coming back, I revisited the Berkshire Swash typeset logo I had set to the side earlier. After adjusting the ends and kerning, I went through to fix some of the sharper points that could be distracting. The typeface almost has a softer, updated black letter vibe, which fits with the Pennsylvania Dutch Amish background. When paired with the original rounded pretzel I created, the logo was shaping out to be an updated version of Auntie Anne's while still honoring the company history. Now that the final direction was set, it's all about minor adjustments, like defining a secondary icon style logo symbol that could be used on their cups, as well as creating a vertical sign layout that would stand out in malls. With a final pass of color, the logo variations were done and separated on different artboards. And that's it. That's the new Auntie Anne's.